Well, what you sent me, there's only like 5, so I have to hold on.
Hare Krishna, dear Guru Maharaj. We should start with letter to students, Vrindavan, 2nd August 1967.
Okay, so I have to, can you just send me the link again? Because I have the last link you sent only has a few letters. Okay, all right. Is this all that's left? Oh, okay, we're almost finished. All right, you want to put it up there? Okay. If anybody wants to follow, the link is there. Can you hear me all right? Okay, it's different microphone. Yeah, okay. I am always thinking of you, and I am feeling separation. I wish to return at the earliest opportunity. I cannot stop my Western world activities, and I have taken leave from you only for 6 months. And it may be that on or before I will come to you again. Prabhupada had gone to India in 1967. So he's writing from India. You try to understand try to put yourself in the situation. This is, Prabhupada was very ill, and he thought he needed to go to India to recuperate, and he actually didn't know if he would recuperate. So he's come to start the Krishna consciousness movement in New York, in San Francisco. He has a small following of dedicated devotees, and now he's going to India, and they're thinking he might not come back. So you can imagine how intense that was. And so this is his letter to them, that he's, obviously they're feeling separation, and he's also saying he's feeling separation. So continue your activities with great vigor. I shall always pray to Krishna for your steady advance. But try to follow the principles which are necessary to strengthen oneself in the matter of spiritual advance. Never think that I am absent from you. Physical presence is not essential. Presence by message or hearing is real touch. Lord Krishna is present by his message, which was delivered 5,000 years ago. We feel always the presence of our past acharyas simply by their immutable instructions. I hope you will understand me right and do the needful. So we had talked about this before, that we can understand this with our head, but our heart doesn't like it. Our heart either doesn't like it, doesn't want to like it, doesn't want to understand it, or can't understand it. And we've heard this instruction a lot, haven't we? Like again and again and again. Prabhupada is saying that the real touch of the Guru is the instruction. It's much better than the physical presence. There's something about getting the instruction in physical presence that's very special. That's how we experience it. So that's why sometimes we have difficulties with these statements. We don't deny the value of the instruction, but when we have the physical presence of the Guru, it's different, it's special. And so when Prabhupada says it's the real presence is the instruction, not the physical presence, we have a difficult time understanding it or accepting it based on our experience. And we can say that, or the way we have to look at it and say, okay, this is my experience, but I'm not a very advanced devotee, so I need that. I need that. I think the warning that Prabhupada is making, and we have discussed this, is that if one becomes only dependent on the physical presence of the guru, then one will not function well in the guru's absence. And as we're discussing this topic, separation from the guru, it's not just separation by miles while the guru is present, but it's also the separation after the guru leaves. And if we look at the situation in ISKCON now, most of the gurus are in their late 60s or 70s, some in their 80s. And if they're still accepting disciples, most younger disciples will be in their 20s and 30s, which means that for many of the disciples, for most of the disciples, even if the disciples are in their 40s or even in their 50s, it means a good portion of their life they're going to live without their guru, unless their guru lives to be like 135 or something, which, of course, it could happen, but it's not likely. I mean, they could live to 90, 95, 98. So even you're 20 and you meet your guru now, so he lives another 30 years. Still, you may live another 20 to 30 years, 40 years without your guru. So when Prabhupada is saying that the real touch is the instruction and that's the real association, we can take it both ways. But I want to get that instruction in his presence. That's special. And we should have the physical presence of the guru if we can, for sure. But at the same time, we want to understand what Prabhupada is saying so that in the absence of the guru, after the guru leaves, our Krishna consciousness will not just deteriorate or completely stop. And that's possible, it can. So it creates a little bit of a paradox, because in our Shastra and in the songs of the Acharyas, the theme of depending on the guru it's very strong. I should depend on my guru. I am a weak, conditioned soul. I should depend on the mercy of my guru for everything. Gurudev Kripa Bindu Diya. Give me a drop of your mercy. Koro e dasi, I am your servant. Trina peka atin, with a straw in my mouth, I'm begging. Chai begadomi, chai dosha shori. Give me the good qualities of a Vaishnava. Get rid of my faults. I'm running after you, Krishna, Krishna. Bole, bole. I'm running after you, chanting Krishna, Krishna. Give me Krishna. You have Krishna. Krishna se tomar, Krishna dite pa. Tomara chat, tomara. Krishna se tomar, Krishna dite. Tomara chat. I forget. You have him. Amito Kangala, Krishna, Krishna bole. I'm running after you, saying Krishna, give me Krishna. So that's there. You have Krishna, you can give him to me. So that's the dependency of the disciple. But it's not a unhealthy codependency, as can exist in the material world, where someone cannot function normally because they become so dependent on another person that dependency has become a weakness, not a strength. And that's a psychological reality. I haven't studied codependency. I think we can understand it where you become dependent on another person in a way that you don't function well without them, or you don't function normally. But that idea somewhat takes is valid in spiritual circles, that there can be a dependency which becomes a weakness. And in fact, in the Bhagavatam first canto, I don't know if you're aware of this, Prabhupada says one should not become overly dependent on another's mercy. So that becomes a weakness. In other words, they do everything. Like when we're teenagers growing to adults, there's this point where your parents want you to become more responsible because they've been taking care of you. And we have this saying in English, mama's boy. Mama's boy is like a young man who's graduated university, he's got a job, He's not married yet, and he's like 35, and he lives at home. And his mother still makes his bed, washes his socks, cooks for him, and like that. He never learned to live on his own. And maybe in some societies that's normal. He wouldn't move out until he gets married. But it can have, his mother may still take care of him like she did when he was 10. Or in some way you don't become strong on your own. You don't take responsibility on your own because someone else is always giving it to you. So definitely Prabhupada wanted to avoid that. So we say, Gurudev, I'm totally dependent on you, but we have to understand that dependency in a way that creates strength, not creates weakness, because it's true, it can create weakness. I'm totally dependent on you. There's a funny story Prabhupada tells. This guru comes to the home of the disciple, and the guru is taken care of very well. Everything is just given so many things. Nice room, nice clothes, nice food is like extraordinary. And every time the guru says, thank you for this. How were you able to do this? And he said, oh, Gurudev, it's your mercy. And then, you get, I forget the story. If we put it in modern context, it would be like first class seat on the airplane, picked up in a chauffeured limousine, put in a 5-star hotel, serve the best prasadam, and so forth. My dear disciple, how were you able to do all this? Oh, it's your mercy, Gurudev. And so it was going on like that, everything, day after day. It's your mercy, Gurudev. How are you able to do your mercy? And then finally the Guru says, we need some money to buy this and that. And the disciple says, there's no money. And he says, why is there no money? He said, well, because I spent the money on all of this. I spent all your money on taking care of you, which what he meant, this is all your mercy. I was able to do this by your mercy. I just wasted all your money. So that, that kind of, I'm dependent on my guru, and I wasted, for everything. I couldn't even make my own money to take care of him. I spent his money. I'm totally dependent on him. So that dependency becomes a weakness. So I think we can see from these quotes, Prabhupada is, he's clearly aware of this potential problem, or a problem that exists, in that if we become dependent in an unhealthy way, then without that physical presence, we wouldn't function well. So that, I'm dependent on the physical presence, and I don't function well. And without it, and at some point I won't have it. And just logistically speaking, for most places I go once a year. Well, India, I stayed a little longer, but most places I'll go for a week. So if you happen to be in that place, then you'll see me, and you won't even necessarily see me every day. Or your guru, not me, your guru, whoever your guru is, who will go. Usually it's the same. They're not going to see you a lot. So your main association is going to be through hearing, and that's how you will learn to appreciate their association, through what they're teaching in it. And in fact, if we study Shastra, we don't see that initiation as just a ritual. We see initiation as a means. Initiation is like an entrance into the university. So you've been accepted. Here's your acceptance letter. You've applied. You're accepted. You're in the university. Now the instruction begins. But of course, even before you're initiated, that instruction's going on. So the main connection between guru and disciple is instruction. It doesn't, somebody's your guru, but you don't get instruction from them. It doesn't really mean anything. Like you say, in India, everyone who is a teacher is called a guru. So let's say you're learning you're learning an instrument, you'll say, well, I'm going to see my tabla guru. Or you're learning dance, I'm going to see my dance guru, or whatever it is. And it would be, and if I say, Hemant, you have a sitar guru, and Hemant says, yes. And I say, do you ever learn from him? You say, no, but I have a sitar guru. You would think that was weird, wouldn't you? Like, why do you have a sitar guru, but you don't learn sitar from him? It doesn't make sense, right? So the idea of a guru, diksha, the idea, the essence is siksha, that he's instructing you, learn from him. And fortunately, unfortunately, whatever, how you want to look at it, the situation in the world today is that we don't live in ashrams. So those instructions, you're going to get instructions through books, through recordings, through Zoom, through WhatsApp messages, Facebook messages, Instagram, TikTok videos. It's just the reality. But you all probably know that Prabhupada did something that was never done before because of the logistics of worldwide preaching, that he gave Gayatri mantra to disciples through a tape. Cassette tapes, those tapes, whether, today it would be, through a sound bite. The sound bite is the Gayatri mantra. And so once you're initiated, then you listen to that in your right ear, a recording. And so Prabhupada did that. And we have initiated devotees on Zoom. This is it's unprecedented. But the sound vibration is the most important thing. So whether some people may say, okay, the guru should be present, that's ideal, that's better. But it's the sound vibration. So whether the guru is present, speaking, or you're hearing a recording, it's that sound vibration that is present. And as you all know, many, many times you'll hear classes of devotees, especially maybe more common amongst Prabhupada disciples, who will say, I was listening to a lecture by Prabhupada this morning, as if Prabhupada was in their temple and he was listening, or they were listening. And Prabhupada said this and Prabhupada said that, as if this is real time, present tense, 2022, Prabhupada is speaking. Because what Shastra speaks, what Prabhupada speaks is relevant eternally. So it feels like, it's not like, well, I was listening to what Prabhupada said, but that was 1967. So, I wasn't really paying attention to it. It's not like that at all. It's kind of outdated. Situations may have changed. You may be referring to a situation that doesn't exist, but the principle is eternal, right? Prabhupada may be talking about something, and typewriters. Well, when was the last time you used a typewriter? When was the last time you saw a typewriter? Maybe if you're 20, you don't even know what a typewriter is. Possible, right? Have any 20-year-olds here? You know what a typewriter is? Never seen one. Or you might look at one and say, why would you use a typewriter? That is so like caveman. And you have to erase it if you make a mistake. How could you, and you hit these big keys like that go down 3 inches? That is like so stupid. So there's there's verses in Shastra, I've heard in Quran or Muslim books, about a camel. So what does it have to do with anything? Well, the camel is a vehicle for them. So it's used as an analogy to a vehicle. It could be replaced with a car or a bike or a horse or a motorcycle or a bullock cart. Yeah, Sydney used to have typewriter. It just shows how old you are now. You revealed it. You revealed your age. Yeah. Yeah. So now, if it's difficult for us to think that the vibration is the real presence of the spiritual master, I've said this before, but I think now is a good time to say it again, is that when your spiritual master leaves permanently to go dance with Krishna, you should be happy that he's dancing with Krishna, number one. But at that point, that will be the only way you can get association. So if you haven't learned how to associate that way, or if you're overly dependent in an unhealthy way on his physical presence, it's going to be really difficult for you when he's gone. That's number one. So that's why I think we've discussed this before. And I think that's clear. I think that's clear. I mean, you know, if I can get closer to this understanding and realization, it's going to be easier when he's not here, because I've learned to connect with him or her, or hopefully continuing to be her, or I guess some people don't like the her part, but anyway, we're not sure if it's a him and her, but we'll just say him, and that could mean him or her. So if we don't learn to get close to him through the vibration, through the instruction, then when he leaves, we're not well prepared for that. That's number one. But there's another point we haven't discussed, and I want to discuss now because it's extremely important. And it's not discussed enough. And in some places, I think it may rarely be discussed at all. And that is that everyone who comes to ISKCON is meant to cultivate a relationship with Srila Prabhupada as their Param Guru. This is you have a Diksha Guru, but you have the Param Guru, who's the founder Acharya of ISKCON. So if someone says, who's your spiritual master, you could say, I am a follower of Srila Prabhupada under the guidance of my guru, so-and-so. That's a complete understanding. It's not like, he's my guru. Who's your guru? So-and-so. No, it's so-and-so and Prabhupada. Not that you want to say I'm initiated by Prabhupada, but Prabhupada is my guru, my Siksha guru. I am a follower of Srila Prabhupada. I am connected to Srila Prabhupada under the guidance of my guru or my gurus, my Diksha, Siksha gurus. So Sureshwar Prabhu has said something which is, I think, summarizes this very well. In answer to the question, how do I know who my guru is? His answer is, first, your guru is Prabhupada, and that connection should be strong. And then you will know who your guru, your Diksha guru is, because he'll be the one that you feel is best bringing you to Prabhupada, is helping you become close to Prabhupada. That person who can best help you become closer to Prabhupada, then you would know. That's the person. That's the criteria for choosing your guru. Because that person will help you strengthen your relationship with Prabhupada. And so if that relationship with Srila Prabhupada has been made strong through the help of your Diksha Guru, then in his absence, you have this very strong relationship with Prabhupada, which is stabilizing you. And I've seen it personally in my own life, that some of our God brothers always stress the importance of Srila Prabhupada in the life of their disciples. And those disciples whose connection with Prabhupada was very strong, although it was difficult when their guru left, they were able to make it quite easily because they had the stability in their relationship with Prabhupada. Those who didn't have a strong relationship with Prabhupada, it was more difficult because they felt abandoned. And many of those gurus who did not nurture their disciples in their relationship with Prabhupada, I have seen, this is just with my own eyes, I've seen the difference. They had a lot more difficulty. Many of them, when their guru left their spiritual life, they couldn't go on. They're, in other words, that's another way of looking at this. Your faith is everything in your spiritual life. That your faith is your connection to Krishna. So that's faith in Shastra, that's faith in Guru, Sadhu. And so if any of that is broken, if you don't have faith in Shastra, if you don't have faith in Prabhupada, you don't have faith in Guru, your spiritual life is in a very precarious situation. You don't have much to hold on to, right? So those who were connected to Srila Prabhupada and had strong faith in Prabhupada, when their gurus left, it was a challenge of faith, because how could my guru leave? How could he fall down? It's like, what to speak of me if he fell? How about me? And my whole life was connected to him, and he became weak. And so obviously a really difficult time. But those who had strong faith in Prabhupada and strong connection, that's what kept them going. So Prabhupada is still here. No matter what, he's still here. My faith is still strong in him. My faith in Shastra is still. I'm not going to allow the fall of one person to diminish my faith in Shastra, to diminish my faith in the institution of Guru, to diminish my faith in Srila Prabhupada, to diminish my faith in the institution. But it's common for that to happen, because that person represented like everything to the disciple. And so when he goes, it's like everything else goes with it. Like everything was connected to that. So no, we are connected to Srila Prabhupada, and your guru is helping you connect to Srila Prabhupada. So if your guru unfortunately left Vaishnavism or couldn't maintain the principles, or leaves his body, you are still, it doesn't affect your connection with Prabhupada. In fact, many ways it strengthens it, because especially if he leaves Vaishnavism or leaves his practice, that's the thread that's going to keep you in. And so that thread, it should be a rope, not a thread. That if that rope is strong, it will be difficult, but not that difficult. But if that rope is weak or almost non-existent, yeah, it could be extremely difficult, because that connection, that faith you had, it weakens. And for some of us, if we're not able to hear regularly and see our guru periodically, it can be really difficult. Somehow, Prabhupada thought, and we have to meditate on this, that even if he didn't come back in 1967, he thought, and at least he felt it was possible, that his disciples could carry on without him and spread Krishna consciousness. I don't think that would happen. It would have happened perhaps. I don't know how successful it would have been, how confusing it would have been. But in principle, Prabhupada thought it could be done because they had his books, and he had given them the fundamental instructions. He had taught them how to chant without offense. So that's interesting meditation. Even very young devotees, Prabhupada felt that through taking shelter of his instructions, they had enough. They had enough power in those instructions and in that connection that even if he didn't come back, and even if he left his body, they could go on. So that's, as I often say, a lot of times when we look at our philosophy or we look at situations, it's natural for us to look at it through our own subjective lenses, because that's the way we look at things. We look through our experience. We look through our understanding. And as you become more Krishna conscious, then you see things differently, because your understanding is different and your consciousness is more purified. And so the challenge that we often have is it's difficult to see things as Prabhupada sees things, or it's difficult to see things as Krishna sees things, because we don't see it like that. Because that sometimes you may read something that Prabhupada says and say, how is that? It doesn't make sense. And just like when Prabhupada's saying, oh, physical presence is nothing, it's the real thing, it's the instruction. And we may not have that experience, and we'll think, how is Prabhupada saying? What does he mean? I don't have that experience. So in times like these, we always have to think, okay, I have my subjective reality, I have my subjective understanding, But Prabhupada's saying something, and this one, for this example, he's saying something that doesn't go along with how I see it or how I experience it. And I have to put my head around what Prabhupada's saying and say, okay, I have to try, okay, what is he saying? What does this mean? I don't understand this. It's not my experience, but it's true. It has to be true. He said it. And so I go into that, try to go into that realm of consciousness. And just like we were talking in the self-care workshop, but some devotees have a difficult time accepting that Krishna would love them because they don't think there's any reason that he would love them. And they just think, you know, I've done many sinful things. I turn my back on Krishna. And, you know, if I did that to a person in this world, they wouldn't love me, generally. And really it's coming from a feeling of I'm so low, I'm so bad, I'm unworthy of Krishna's love. And so that makes sense to them from their perspective. So we can say, yeah, okay, objectively, you're a rascal. Okay, we'll admit it. You're a rascal, right? You turned your back on Krishna. So from a material perspective, it seems like, well, why would Krishna want anything to do with you? You turned your back on him. But that's because we're looking at it from our perspective. We're not looking at it from Krishna's perspective. And so when we understand Krishna's mind, his heart, his nature, his position, then we can understand, oh, he does love me. I can understand why he loves me. Although I can't understand through my subjective lens why, but I can understand through his mind and heart why. And so we have to see it that way. And if we don't, then, you know, how can you really call yourself a devotee if you're not looking at it from his perspective and you're only looking at it from your perspective? Because then you'll never understand it. So Prabhupada's saying, okay, the real association is through instruction. It is better. It's always there. You can always get it. It's the real thing. The physical presence, it's nice, but it's not as important. And we're thinking, but my subjective experience is the exact opposite. The physical presence is amazing, and the instructions are like, yeah, they're okay. They help me, but that physical presence is like the booster shot. And so we have to meditate. Okay, what does Prabhupada mean by this? I can't deny it, even though my experience might not yet agree with it. I have to understand, what is he saying? What is he saying? Okay, if you're having difficulty understanding this, then let's go back to Prabhupada and your connection with Prabhupada. And so we're talking about, do you have a connection with Prabhupada? You may not know it, you may not have cultivated it, but you have it. He's your Param Guru. This connection is the most important thing. Our movement is guided by his books. The gurus are just trying to bring you closer to Prabhupada and closer to understanding what Prabhupada said and what he wants. And that's our perfection. And as you cultivate that, you start to feel like Prabhupada is your guru. And then you realize, I never met him, and I feel his presence. He's my guru. And then that point that Prabhupada makes, that instruction is the real association. You now have practical realization of it, right? And sometimes we deny it, but the point is we have practical realization of it, right? That the guru is not a 2 or 3 dimensional figure. He's not limited by time and space. That his instructions are eternal. They're Krishna's words. They're always powerful. If you, as Prabhupada said, you want to know me, read my books, you can know Prabhupada, you can understand his heart, his mind, you will feel his presence. You remember that story I told of this devotee who was working with ITV, editing the Acharya series? Every day he's seeing these videos of Prabhupada. And he's on book distribution, and he's telling a man about Prabhupada. And he's telling this man, because he's seeing these videos every day, he's telling this man about Prabhupada as if he's with Prabhupada all the time. And then the man asked him, so when did you meet him? And it caught him off guard because he didn't even, this devotee, he never really thought that he never met Prabhupada until the man asked the question and said, when did you meet him? And then it just shocked him. He said, oh my God, I never met him. And so he realized how close Prabhupada was, even though he was never in his physical presence. And he never thought that before till that man asked him the question. And I think it's obvious that the man wouldn't have asked that question unless it sounded like to that man that this devotee had met Srila Prabhupada, because the way he was talking was like he met him, like he was with him. And so really he was with him every day when he was doing the videos. That's the conclusion, right? Thou art living in sound. He reasons ill who say the Vaishnavas die when thou art living in sound. Yeah. So there are principles, there are teachings in our philosophy that require depth, purification, repeated hearing to finally register, because they're not material. Like Krishna and the deity, is the same. Like, okay, how long will it take? As you become purified, you understand it. As you worship the deity, you understand it. Krishna is in his name, not in his name. Krishna is his name. You're chanting your rounds and you're thinking, if Krishna is his name, why am I not more excited? Why am I not relishing this more? It doesn't make sense. It really requires purification. So sometimes, not sometimes, always, when these things happen, where there's this, what's the word? It's not paradox. We can use the word paradox. I can't think of another word right now. But there's paradox between what's being said and your experience. It's like they're two different things. This is being said, Krishna's in his name. My experience is sometimes, I'm tired. I don't feel like chanting. If Krishna were actually there and I realized it, I don't think I would get tired. I think I probably couldn't sleep. So the word is dichotomy. There's this dichotomy between what Shastra or Guru is saying and my experience. And it's a reality, right? And so that's where faith comes in. So it's because of faith that I accept what's being said that goes against my experience. And that becomes my guiding light. And I just have to say, I'm giving class and I have to say, the words of the Guru are more important than the physical presence. Even I haven't experienced that. I have to say it because it's true, right? It's my duty. And I have to pray to Krishna, to Prabhupada Mahaprabhu, please help me understand this. And it's true. Whether you think it is true or not, whether that's your experience or not, it's true. And you will be forced to realize this truth after your spiritual master leaves, because that's the only way you will get his association. You'll see his picture, you'll hear his classes, you may see some videos, usually he's speaking, and you will feel sometimes like he's there. Sometimes I'll be talking to a god brother and they'll be doing some service and they'll say, something will happen and they'll say, or some devotee will say, I feel like Prabhupada is here. Like you feel some presence, like he's here, meaning like he would really be pleased by this. And and the other devotee, let's say, who organized the program, said, you think so? He'd be pleased. They want to know. Yeah, I can feel I felt like Prabhupada sitting in the audience was smiling. So when you're doing something that your guru asked you and this is what made him happy, then when you do it, you can just feel he's there. Or when you're doing something that Prabhupada has asked, do this. You just know. I'm with Prabhupada. This is what he wants. Like I can feel it. I can feel it. His presence is in those instructions. This is what he asked me to do. I'm doing it. So many devotees experience that doing book distribution, because book distribution is so dear to Prabhupada. And obviously it's his books that you're distributing for the most part, or his teachings. So we see devotees today going out and inspired and obviously feeling deeply connected to Prabhupada. And they can testify, yeah, I feel that Prabhupada is here. He's giving me the energy, the intelligence, the words. As I said before, if you open a temple or you run a temple, then you feel very close to Prabhupada because it's his temple. It's such a big responsibility. Anytime you take a bigger responsibility in Prabhupada's movement, you feel closer. You feel like, oh, Prabhupada knows somehow or another. He knows I'm doing this. He's happy. He's pleased. I feel that connection. So we do have a little glimpse of that, but I think my point is important, that I see this happening a lot with devotees, that it's just they get caught in not yet being purified enough or advanced enough or something enough that the instruction makes sense to them based on their intelligence and their experience, and they just like, I don't know, I can't see how this is true. And that's where faith is important, because if we base it on just what we can experience and understand, then we limit our understanding. We have to go to the point of, okay, I don't understand it, but I know it's true. It has to be true. Prabhupada said it, and hopefully, as I go on in Krishna consciousness, I will understand it more and more and more. And like I'm saying, for us, even after Prabhupada left, and Prabhupada saying Guru is present, I estimate it took me about 8 years before I finally got it. Because it was, say Prabhupada is present, it's difficult. I have to plug in my computer. So just hold tight. Keep that thought in your mind, because I will forget what I said, because I'm doing something else, and you can remind me, and I'll be right back. Okay, what was the last thing I said? Tell me. Took you 8 years, yeah. So after Prabhupada left, there we'd have Vyas pujas, and people would say, yeah, the Guru never leaves. He's always there in his instruction. We would quote Prabhupada. And we'd all sit there, like totally miserable. Yeah, right. It's like, just don't even say that. It's like, it doesn't help. It's rubbing salt on the wound, And then there were manifestations of Prabhupada being present. Like I say, when you do a program and it's amazing, and you think like, okay, you could feel Prabhupada's there. Or you're hearing a class and it's like you're there and you're inspired by it. But there are also manifestations that he's not there. That sometimes something happens and you're thinking, well, if Prabhupada were here, that wouldn't have happened. Two devotees not getting along. If Prabhupada were here, they would have gotten along. Or some controversy. Oh, if Prabhupada were here, he would have solved the controversy. So you have this, no, it's different. There, if this person's doing something wrong, he said, oh, if Prabhupada were here, he would have not done it, or Prabhupada would have corrected it, or Prabhupada would have rehabilitated him he would have been stronger. You know, you're seeing all these things, and then people are saying, Prabhupada is here, he never left. And we're like, wait a minute. If Prabhupada were here, this wouldn't go on. So we had this kind of dichotomy. And it really comes down to when we're saying, oh, Prabhupada's here, he's here for us personally. In our lives, he's still there guiding us. We're still connected. That's what it means. That you will experience. And I think we read, or I said, and a devotee asked Prabhupada, well, how will you guide us when we're gone? And Prabhupada said, I'll guide you through the heart. I will guide you through dreams. There's the super soul. You know, there's ways that Prabhupada will guide us. So when we say the Guru is present, Prabhupada's present, it's a very personal thing. And you can experience that personally in your life. If you execute Prabhupada's instruction, you will feel his presence, even though you're not his initiated disciple. It doesn't really matter. Initiation is, as we said many times, initiation is formality. So you can be Prabhupada, a disciple, grand disciple, without an official initiation. If the Prabhupada wants you to take initiation from a living guru, it doesn't minimize that relationship. It should maximize it. It should be better. Like we have the Ripik movement. So the Ripik movement is just Prabhupada. Everything is centered on Prabhupada. So in one sense, that's easy. You know, it's just like we all, you know, it's just very unified. But that's the way ISKCON is supposed to be, with the addition of Diksha Gurus who are helping all of us become centered on Prabhupada. So Prabhupada has never left. The sense is he's never left you. That relationship, or it's always there. His service is always there. Your connection, your experience of his presence is always there through service. And it always will be there. And he's not limited physically, because his physical body is not here doesn't mean he's not here. And Prabhupada indicated that his spiritual master is always seeing him. Where's his spiritual master? How is he always seeing him? Prabhupada got guidance in Vrindavan from Rupa Goswami at the Radha Damodar temple, telling him, you go to the West, you write these books, we'll be behind you, we'll take care of everything. Where's Rupa Goswami? Have you seen him? You've been to Vrindavan, right? You've been to his samadhi. You've been to his bhajan. Was he talking to you? You know, like, but at the same time, being at the samadhis of these great acharyas, it's not like just sitting in a park in, you know, Croatia or Mexico or Amsterdam or Faridabad or Tyler, Texas, or Bangalore or Tampa, Florida, or Siberia, or Pune, or Gainesville, or Lithuania. I'm going down the line. Nidhi, I forgot your city. Or Chile. Yeah, it's different. Anyone who's been to these places, it's different. So why is it different? Because the presence of that personality, it's Tirtha, it's a holy place. Where they have lived, they are present. That's the Siddhanta. You go to, when I go to Prabhupada's Samadhi in Vrindavan, I hear Prabhupada talking to me, chastising me all the time. Do more, you lazy good for nothing. Do more. I always hear that, you know, it's just like something, I just hear Prabhupada saying something. Maybe it's just my guilty conscience talking, I don't know. But I always hear, you know, like, be more Krishna conscious, you know, go out, do more. It's not an ordinary place. It's definitely not ordinary. Anyone who's been to Vrindavan, to Mayapur, you know it's not ordinary. So the tirthas, because of Krishna's Leela and because of the Leelas of the great devotees. So you all have experienced that presence, right? Oh, we go to Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house. It's amazing, right? Just, wow, there we are in his room. Hare Krishna. Not like sitting in a room in your college. This is a different room. Right? You can go in the room where Shakespeare wrote Hamlet, but you get chills on your body, but it's not going to purify you that same way. Or go on the building, the roof where the Beatles recorded Get Back. And you go, wow, Tirtha, holy place. It's not the same. Okay. So, why don't we take some questions or comments, since I see some coming up in the chat, and let's see where it takes us. So we have the letter, and then meet is like, how old are you? Meet like 20, 21. He's never seen a typewriter. It's not funny. Sydney, he used to have a typewriter. Yeah. I always use the example of typewriters when sometimes I feel like preaching, somebody's sharing Krishna consciousness, but it's not relating to people. And I say, Prabhu, I think you're selling typewriters. I think you're still trying to sell typewriters to people. It's like you gotta update your outreach. It's 2022. It's like they don't know what typewriters are. They don't want typewriters. Actually, some people do want typewriters because they don't want to write and be connected to the internet because it's distraction. I heard there's a new movement for typewriters, and plus, if there's no electricity, then so we have Kamania here to quote me what I said, and then I read it and I think, who said that? But now I know it's me, so I'm not fooled anymore. But she used to quote me and I didn't know she was quoting me. And I'd read it and I go, who said that? He said, you said that 5 minutes ago. Like, okay, maybe I need to go to a brain surgeon. But can't remember what happened 5 minutes ago. But I feel very inspired by that. I go, oh, it was an inspiration. Didn't even realize I said it. So here's a quote. Everyone who comes to ISKCON is meant to cultivate a relationship with Srila Prabhupada as their Param Guru. Yes. In the retreat we're going to do in Vrindavan, which you're all invited to, from the 14th of February to the 18th. And then you can stay in Vrindavan 3 or 4 days longer. I'll be there. And then I think I'm going to Pune to do something after that. You're all invited. The schedule, we'll get the schedule. Maybe this week we'll finalize it, but 14th or 18th, definitely we're doing the retreat. I want to focus a lot of the retreat on cultivating our connection with Prabhupada, and if I can find God brothers who are willing to speak, who can come, then I definitely will invite them so you can hear their perspective, their experience. I think this is essentially important. There's another quote. The person, oops, I lost my quote. The person who can bring you closest to Srila Prabhupada is the criterion for choosing your Diksha Guru. The relationship with Srila Prabhupada will stabilize you when your Diksha Guru leaves. Yes. Jaidev says, I still try to understand the relation between my own strength of my sincerity, and the mercy I'm depending on, because I have no qualification to be a devotee except for causeless mercy. So it's hard for me to understand this paradox, that at the same time dependency creates weakness. There's everything in life has a healthy side and a dysfunctional side. Well, I can't say everything, but many things, maybe everything. Just like you can have a very healthy relationship with your wife or a very dysfunctional relationship with your wife. So the relationship is not the problem. The problem is if it's dysfunctional, if it's weakening you, or if it's healthy and strengthening you. So that was my point. I'm totally dependent. Okay. I'm totally dependent on the mercy of my guru. So I take, okay. So let's say the mercy is $10,000. You take that $10,000, you turn it into 100,000. But you take that 10,000 and you just spend it. And then you have nothing and you go back to your guru and say, I need 10,000 more. That's codependency, is dysfunctional. But the codependency where you take the 10,000, turn it into 100,000. And every time he gives you 10,000, you turn it into 100,000. That's healthy. And because now now you have 200,000. With that 200,000, you turned it into 500,000. So from that initial mercy, you've been able to develop so much. And all the instructions you get from your guru are helping you expand your investment. But the weak codependency, he keeps spending the money. And every time he sees his gurus, like, can you give me 10,000 more? I need 10,000. And he gets his 10,000, gets the darshan, spends a week with his guru, gets the 10,000. And then next year he's got no money. And I always tell devotees, when you go to the Dham, there's two things that are going to happen when you leave. You're going to take that investment in the Dham and you're going to invest it and make money, or you're going to come back and spend it all and it'll be gone. And so sometimes we come back from the Dham and we're doing really well for 3 weeks. It's usually the 3-week mark we go back to normal. But even sometimes we go below normal. It's almost like you're in the Dham. There's so much mercy that sometimes you come back out of the Dham, you don't do anything. You're just flying on mercy. And you think, well, I was in the Dham. It was so easy to chant and get up. And so you don't even try anymore. And then you realize, after 3 weeks, I'm not in the Dham. I have to try. So that was, you just spent the investment. You took the 10,000, you went out to eat, you went to movies, took your friends, on vacation. You thought that money was just going to go forever. So it's a bit like that. I have that experience. I've seen that happen to other devotees. They get so much mercy, they stop trying. You think, like, I don't have to try. I just get mercy from my guru. He does it all. Guru Dev, your mercy is all I'm made of. I'm going to sleep. Not like that. Your mercy can do anything. If you want me to do something, I guess you'll wake me up, right? Hare Krishna. No. Here's the money. Go start a business. Turn it into 100,000. Turn that 100,000 into 1,000,000. Like that. Yeah. So we were talking about the 8 years to realize. Yeah. So I think part of the realization was, it was like, it's like, okay, Prabhupada's left. It's been year after year after year that he's gone. It dawns on you, at least for me, it dawned on me at a certain point that I can't live in this state of feeling despondent and down because Prabhupada's left. I have to figure out how I can get his association and remain inspired. And so it kind of hits it like a do or die point. I think that's what happened to me. It was like, am I going to go on like this? Or am I going to, go more deeply into understanding how Prabhupada's present and realizing that presence through hearing, through serving his mission. And so at some point we're confronted with that choice, because if we don't learn how to experience his presence in his absence, we won't be able to go on. And I think that's what happened for me and probably all of us. It's like, how am I going to go on if I don't realize his presence in his words, in his mission? If I don't feel that close to Prabhupada, if I don't acknowledge that I don't need the physical presence, that was not a mature realization of the Guru. But that I can get as inspired and as purified through his books and his words than I could in his presence, or maybe even more so. Because those instructions are even more important now because I don't have the physical presence to give me that 10,000 whenever I need it. Does that make sense? Hopefully you can do it in one day. Don't take 10 years. Jaidev says, isn't it similarly difficult to understand that the spiritual master is always present in his instructions as it is to understand that Krishna is always there? Maybe more difficult. Because from day one you become a devotee, you're told Krishna's in his leelas, Krishna's in his name, Krishna's in the deity, Krishna's in the prasadam, so it's like you're going from day one. And it's just ingrained fundamentally in the philosophy. But you say, yeah, Prabhupada's present. Yeah, but I know next year I'm going to see him. So, present or not, whatever, but I'm going to go see him. I'm going to go to Mayapur. I'll be with him for a whole month in Mayapur and Vrindavan for the festival. I can do that. So it's always, there's always this backup. It was harder. I mean, it didn't have to be harder, but I would say generally it was. I have a question from Jeremy. There are many devotees, even non-devotees, who have had intense, vivid dreams or appearance of Prabhupada up to the present time. How can we understand that Prabhupada is still present and guiding devotees, and yet understand he may also be in Vaikuntha participating in Nitya Leela? Yeah. So another class I told the story. So a devotee went to Prabhupada and said, is it, are there any acharyas that just go from one planet to another or one universe to another, just preaching and never go back to Godhead? And Prabhupada said, yes. Then the devotee said, he was bewildered, it didn't make sense, because you always think they've come from the spiritual world and they take a form in the material world and they still have their spiritual form. So the devotee said, is it that they have a spiritual form in the spiritual world, they come down, and in this form, in this world, they go from universe to universe preaching, or planet to planet, or life to life preaching? And Prabhupada said, yes, it's something like that. So the answer to questions like this is that a devotee, a liberated devotee, can expand his form so he can be in both places at once. It's possible. We have learned from Bhaktivinoda Thakur that if you desire to be in Krishna Lila and you desire to be in Gaura Lila, then when you go back to Godhead, you will have a form in both Leelas, if that's what you want. So you'll be with Mahaprabhu in Navadvip, Mayapur, in the eternal Leelas there, and you'll be with Krishna and Braj in those eternal Leelas. Then you think, well, it's one soul and two bodies. How does that work? And then you can read in Shastra how different devotees are expansions of well, this is, Vishaka and Arjun merged, and it's like, what is it? Is it the soul? Is it the Shakti? Is the energy? The Shaktis. It's so at a certain point you can understand it to some degree, but it's not a material thing. So it's when you look at it, like I was saying before, when you look at it through a material lens, then at a certain point it's just not going to make sense anymore. So as Krishna can expand, his devotees can expand. If that's what Krishna wants, if that's what they want, then it can happen. For you and me, we can expand in different leelas. If Krishna wants us to preach in another universe, maybe we will not be in the spiritual world at the same time. Maybe we will. It's possible. Maybe. But I think we can leave it at that, that these things are not understood materially. One soul, two bodies, how does that work? It goes against our philosophy, right? All right, what about the mystic? Can expand in 8 forms, one soul in 8 forms. Figure that one out. Or it's like remote control. It's actually one form, the others are duplicates, carbon copies without a soul. That one soul is invigorating the life of the other 7 bodies. Sometimes for these questions we come to Prabhupada, which were a little bit beyond material understanding. He would say, yes, this can be done, but he didn't explain it exactly scientifically how it happens. So we accept that. It's not restricted, but it's not being restricted by material laws. It's not in the material world, so the material laws don't apply. So if you're looking at it through the material laws, it can be confusing because those laws don't operate there. It's a whole set of spiritual laws. I have another quote. Prabhupada is here for us personally, guiding us in our lives. You can be a grand disciple of Srila Prabhupada without initiation. You already are. Not that you can be. I would say we could re-edit that, not re-edit it. We could edit it and say, you already are a disciple of Prabhupada, you just have to realize it. Right? Question from Manini Radha Devidasi. Thank you, Prabhu. When a senior devotee falls down, is it okay to keep hearing from him if he still keeps preaching the right philosophy? If the devotees encourage him to keep preaching, is it helpful for such devotees to get up again? That's an interesting question, because I think some devotees, because when things like this happen, different devotees relate differently to the one who's fallen down. So some will say, well, this devotee helped me a lot and I appreciated his classes and I think they're beautiful and shastric and inspiring, and I still want to go ahead and hearing them, And then someone else would say, well, look what that devotee did. How could you hear from him? Maybe he was doing all these horrible things while he was giving those classes, and it's contaminated, and you'll fall down also. It's quite a subjective thing, and the faith you have in another devotee, it's hard to legislate that faith. If a devotee fell down, he committed some whatever he did, and you know what he did, and you want to process it in a certain way, that's fine, but just don't condone what he did. If what he did is bad, you can't say. So some people might think you're condoning what he did by listening to him. So, and then this question comes up, of course, if that person who fell was your guru. For some disciples, the faith will be completely destroyed, so they wouldn't have this question. They wouldn't want to hear because they lost faith in that person. So you can't legislate faith. I guess some people could say, why would you have faith in that person who did something horrible? So I don't think we can legislate an answer for that. I think that's going to be up to you, and you're going to evaluate it by hearing. But I think at the same time, you have to be aware that whatever that person did wrong, if you're hearing from that person, other people are going to feel, rightly or wrongly, that you supporting his crime, whatever that crime was, by hearing from him. That's, because it's a volatile situation, right? If a person had fallen down and did something really bad, and you were close to that person, and you met that person, and someone took a picture of you with that person after this information is out of what that person did, and they post it on Facebook, people are going to think you are supporting that person. It's just what they'll think. So it's something to be aware of. It's something that I've had to learn myself. You have to be careful who you're close with when it becomes known that the person you're close with did something apprehensible, because then people will lose faith in you. Why are you with them? Are you supporting what they did? You know what I mean? You're not supporting. You're totally against it. You feel that what that person did is horrible, but they had helped you and their instructions are helpful. You know, that's a question you have to answer, but just understand the implications of it. And I think, you know, if a person was not following strictly while they were giving class, even though what they were saying is true, it might not carry the Shakti, and it could even potentially have a negative effect by hearing, because it's not coming from the pure source. That's another consideration. So you would have to judge yourself. Yeah, it's an issue of faith. You can hear from someone you have faith in. You can't benefit by hearing from someone you don't have faith in, because it won't do anything for you. And so I think the answer, the last thing I want to say is, do you want to have faith? Maybe you do have faith. Do you want to have faith in a person who's done something which is in reprehensible in everyone's mind? It's not subjective. It is reprehensible. If that's the case, if it's not some like little fall down, or little accident, but something like serial, repeated, which is an abomination for a person of an exalted status, then you have to ask yourself the question, is there something wrong with me that I want to hear from this person? Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I don't know, but it's something you may want to question yourself. Like, why am I minimizing the fault of that person? Am I minimizing the sin by wanting to hear from them? Perhaps. I don't know. It's a difficult question. I wish we didn't have questions like this. But, you know, in situations where an exalted leader does something horrendous, you know, what always comes across my mind when people ask questions about it, the first thing that goes through my mind is, I wish he didn't do that, because then I wouldn't have to answer this question. I pray nobody does anything wrong in our movement, and then we don't have to deal with these things, because there's never an easy answer. Because there's always going to be people who will support the person, who will rationalize it in some way. And always people who will condemn the person. Hare Krishna. Times like these, we need to really, you know, introspect ourselves about it. You know, if someone has done something where someone has been victimized, and you continue with some faith in following and hearing that person, the victims, just like it hurts the victims. I mean, it does. It definitely does, for sure. Guaranteed. So that's something you have to think about, you know. I have experience of that. Just a person who had done something bad, I was trying to help. But in trying to help him, I had brought him into the Sangha. And many devotees wrote me and said, how could you bring this person in your Sangha? They did such horrible things. It looks like I'm supporting him. And I had to tell the person, you can't come in our Sangha, because it's, I'd like to help you, but people think this is really, really bad, that I would allow you. A person who did what you did was so bad. And it's like me allowing you is condoning you. And I didn't understand it until people told me. And then I told them, yeah, you can't come, I'm sorry. And what could he say? He had done horrible things and he had to accept it. And that was the best thing. Otherwise, people would have lost trust in me. You're like supporting someone who did something horrible. So that's my experience. So that's something to think about. Hare Krishna. I was talking to another God brother and I was saying that, sometimes somebody does something horrible and, we don't want to just send them to the lions and forget about them. But in trying to make amends to the whole situation, sometimes those who are abused are neglected because you want to try to help the perpetrator, get his life together and find out why he made mistakes and so forth. Okay. But what about the abusers? So then there's the cry will come up. Why is energy going? Why is the sympathy going to the perpetrator, not to the abusers? They're the ones that need the most help. So you have to be careful. These are sensitive issues, right? Hare Krishna. Okay, should we go further or? Oh, we have more quotes now from my last statement. You want to hear the latest quote? You can hear from someone you have faith in. You can't benefit from hearing from someone you don't have faith in. It won't do anything for you. Yeah. And having faith in someone that no one else hasn't having faith in is could create problems for you personally and in your spiritual life as well. So these are all things. And you can't legislate faith. We have seen in our movement, some leaders have done some very horrible things and people stayed with them. We can't fathom why anybody would, but they did. We never condone their activities. We totally condemned them. We told people that this is what has happened and you should take shelter elsewhere. And still, some people stayed with them. What can you do? Our job is, okay, this is what happened, and this is our philosophy. We explain it. This is what the person did. This is our philosophy. Now, you understand, and you make a decision. Hare Krishna. Reality is sometimes miserable, isn't it? Living in fairy tale land is sometimes nicer. I think that's like we like to go to Vrindavan, just like so nice. Hear Krishna's Leelas, because in Krishna's Leela, everything is good and fun and happy. Okay, we have time. Unless someone has a question, we can read another quote. Letter to Jayananda. May 5th. This is after Jayananda left. I think he left on the 4th, no? Jayananda Prabhu, he either died on May 4th, maybe May 5th, May 3rd, something like that. So Prabhupada receives information that he left. And this is Prabhupada's writing a letter to Jayananda. Jayananda had already left and he's writing a letter. My dear Jayananda, please accept my blessings. I'm feeling very intensely your separation. In 1967, you joined me in San Francisco. You were driving in my car and chanting Hare Krishna. You were the first man to give me some contribution, $5,000 for printing my Bhagavad Gita. After that, you have rendered very favorable service to Krishna in different ways. I so hope at the time of your death, you were remembering Krishna, and as such, you have been promoted to this eternal association of Krishna. So we have been, here's a little change up on our discussion because we've been talking about separation of the disciple from the guru leaving, disciple feeling separation. Here is the opposite. Jayananda left, Prabhupada was still here. And Prabhupada's feeling separation from Jayananda. And so, I think we should always remember that it's not a one-way street. Bhagavad Gita, the guru is also feeling separation from the disciple. It's a relationship. And many times when a devotee had left Krishna consciousness, especially a leader who had maybe fallen from their exalted position, and they later came back to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada asked them if they want to take up their service or they want some other service, and they were expecting that Prabhupada was going to reject him. And in one conversation, I think we read this in the self-care course. Well, it was a parenthetical statement, so I'll explain it a little more. It was a sannyasi, and he got married. So generally, sannyasis don't get married, obviously. So it's quite embarrassing. You're a sannyasi, and next week you show up at the temple with your wife. It's awkward and embarrassing, and you naturally feel that you let your guru down. So after some time after the marriage, he came back to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said something like either what service do you want to do, or I think even said you want to take up your former service. He was president of the New York Temple, and Prabhupada was willing to engage him. And this devotee was shocked. He was shocked. He says he thought Prabhupada would not engage him, maybe reject him. And he expressed that to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, you have done so much service for me. I am always appreciative, more or less, always appreciative, thankful for all the service you've done. I could never forget that service. So, it's not just the disciple serves the guru and all the emotion is on the side of the disciple, and the disciple is feeling separation, pain and love, but the guru also feels that. When Prabhupada's first disciples left him, he would ask some disciples, go out, find them, bring them back. Prabhupada felt like the son has left. And we told this story before. Prabhupada in Hawaii went to see Gaur Sundar, one of the first disciples. He was the one who started the Hawaii temple. And Prabhupada said, what did I do to cause you? Prabhupada was taking the responsibility. What did I do to cause you to leave? Wow. Or, what can I do to get you to come back? That's how Prabhupada felt. Amazing, isn't it? That Prabhupada would say that. That was like totally taking the responsibility on himself. And one of the early devotees was leaving, and it was a similar situation. And so there's a lot of emotion there. These were like spiritual children for Prabhupada. So I think it's really significant for us to note that when somebody did service to Prabhupada, he never forgot it. It was like, how can I? Sometimes for me, a disciple will do something wrong, and sometimes inside of me, I'm like feeling this disciple just needs to be chastised. Like they need to be like set straight. This is really bad. And then I think, this disciple has done so much service. I can't do that. It's like, is that the only, they're going to get reciprocation from me. You say, I never said thank you for the service. The only thing you ever said was, you're stupid and you do stupid things. Like, how can I say that? It's just like, what that is like, destroy them, So, the guru feels indebted to all the service the disciples do. And, Prabhupada's traveling around the world is so difficult. That traveling is to reciprocate with all the service. Yes. So we should remember that the separation is mutual, for sure. I haven't, I mean, I've lost some disciples, so I know what it's like, people you're close with, and it's just like they lose faith in Krishna, they lose faith in Prabhupada, they lose faith in the movement, and they give up bhakti, they have their reasons. It's very painful. And I've had disciples who'd almost died, or who now have cancer, and I don't know what's going to happen. It's like the guru is it's not like guru is just a cement block, and like, just gives instructions. It doesn't feel anything. So Prabhupada expressed his gratitude to his disciples over and over and over again. And his intense desire was to take them back to Godhead. And if they didn't follow, it was painful, because that was his mission. Okay. Now we're going to chant japa. And next Wednesday, you'll see me where Goramani is. You'll see me there also. I don't know, but I don't know if I want to give class then, because that means 3:30. I mean, I might be up, but I'm going there to write. So it's like, I'm going there to be isolated. So be merciful upon me. I can isolate. Don't send me any messages, okay? No messages for a month. Just pretend I don't exist, unless it's an emergency, okay? If you have any problems, this is one guru, when we would do a Christmas marathon, he would say, if you have any problems, hold them off till January, because now we're focusing on book distribution. So yeah, hold your problems off till January. Probably most of them will go away if you hold them off that long. They'll kind of just, problems are like basketballs with holes in them. They tend to just, like, over time, just dissipate. Okay, Hare Krishna. Goramani, I don't know what to say about Japa.